The Clone Wars continue ever onward, and our journey now takes us through the halfway point of Season 4. Come with me as I continue to watch through the Clone Wars for the first time. Well, hello there! My name's Jeremy and welcome back to Freeform Disney, where I talk about all aspects of Disney, from the animated movies to the theme parks to Star Wars, Marvel, and Pixar, and the TV shows, and everything else in between. And that is why it's Freeform. And keep coming back every day for new daily content. If you're not subscribed yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Now it's time to follow up the incredibly impressive Umbara arc. While that feels like an impossible task right now, we press on regardless. So let's jump on in. First up is the Zygerrian slaver arc, and we have the episode Kidnapped. And this is Ahsoka's species here. Now this is just a colony of her species, an artesian colony on the planet Kyros. And they're all about art. Well, Dooku betrays them. Well, I'm not sure that he really betrays them per se. He just kind of lands there and then captures them, so it's not really a betrayal. A peaceful occupation, right, where we abduct all of them and, well, take them off and sell them off to slavers. Good times! Yeah. Well, unknowing of what's happened to all the people, Obi-Wan, Anakin, Ahsoka, Rex, and all are off to go ahead and try to rescue the people on the planet. Now we get this really cool speeder fight in there between the bunch of them and a whole bunch of commando droids. And by the way, these are two-seater speeders, and they're pretty cool actually, being able to turn the sidecar around. And Ahsoka, they really let Ahsoka be a badass here in this episode. We don't get to see that all that much prior to this. So it's nice. It seems to be changing more here. And loving the double lightsabers, getting to use two of them. Really getting a nice fighting style for her that's more unique from what we've seen on other people. Same with the hand grip on those lightsabers. Loving it. Okay, so what do we do in this episode? We end up running into this Zygerrian slaver Dinar. And apparently he's put bombs all around the town. And hey, Obi-Wan better go ahead and just give up and let him win, because otherwise he's going to start blowing up the bombs. Well, so that means Anakin and Ahsoka are off to go ahead and disarm the bombs, while Obi-Wan essentially goes in and keeps Dinar busy. Now, we should note that Anakin has a little bit of a problem here, considering we're talking about slavers and his background of having been a slave as a kid. Yeah. Now, this is actually the first time Ahsoka's really gotten to hear about it, because Obi-Wan fills her in a little bit. This is not exactly a past Anakin talks about. Now, that doesn't really surprise me. But I'm curious if that'll change any of the relationship between Ahsoka and Anakin now that she knows that extra piece about his past. Let's see, what else do we find out about? Oh yeah, we found out about the Zygerrian slave empire at the beginning of it. It's going to become more relevant in the next two. Which, some hundreds of years ago, the Jedi ended their big ol' slave empire. Now, there was some great teamwork between Anakin and Ahsoka during the episode. Some fun fighting throughout it. That's the kind of episode this one is right here. It's certainly an enjoyable episode. There's an interesting thing. At the end, Dakar is getting away. And Anakin and Ahsoka are the ones who give chase. And Dakar, just with this weird little insult he's trying to toss at Ahsoka. Just calling her a young Jedi. Learn her place, blah, blah, blah. And Ahsoka gets this line of, "I'm not so young anymore." It seems meta to me. It just seems like we're talking about her having grown through the course of the show as well. And she really isn't as young anymore. Now, Anakin comes in and he's looking like he's going to kill Dakar. Only with Ahsoka's intervention does he pretty much stop that? Because I think he would have gone there otherwise. Yeah. And at the end of the episode, well, we find out that guess what? All of the people in that colony were taken. They're all gone as slaves. And hey, we find out apparently slavery, great tool for the rise of the Sith. Well, I suppose that's not a surprise, huh? Anything gives you a big ol' army. Now, this was, definitely a fun episode. Good action. Good to see Ahsoka coming more into her own here. I was surprised by how little talk there was from Ahsoka of her people or really getting a connection. And the other two episodes after this don't really add a whole lot to that. And that surprised me a little, considering. But yeah, good, fun, enjoyable episode right there. Okay, so onward we go and working on rescuing the people. So we are on to Slaves of the Republic, and we're going to head over to Zygerria, the heart of the old Zygerrian Empire. So they're all in disguise, and we've got Ahsoka being disguised as a slave. Lucky Ahsoka, I suppose. Yeah. Well, anyway, Anakin goes ahead and gets his audience with the Queen, bringing in slave Ahsoka in there. But meanwhile, Obi-Wan is around, and hey, we even saw a hut in the background. One of our good old heads of the hut houses. So he made a little cameo in there. And then Obi-Wan makes this, let's be honest, it's a really foolhardy rescue attempt of the governor from Kairos. You'd expect Obi-Wan to be a little more level-headed on this kind of thing, and not going off on quite as much a half-baked plan, but he sure as hell did here. So it was the governor from Kairos he tried to rescue. Really failed. Well, back with Anakin, he gifts Ahsoka to the Queen as, here's a gift of a slave. And they're getting along really well, and they head off to this slave auction. And now there's an interesting speech the Queen gives. So the Queen is working on hoping to rebuild her empire. And now this is after Obi-Wan is being brought in, so we're talking about the Jedi in this speech from the Queen. And the Queen talks about how, yeah, we can force him into submission, just like everyone else that we have too. They're not that different. And why? Now this is the really good part in here. For they have forsaken their ideals to serve a corrupt Senate. Every Jedi has become a slave to the Republic. Especially when we talk about things like this war too, forsaking the ideals. Yeah. And in a way, becoming slaves to the Republic. It's like, ooh, that's an intriguing way of looking at that. And there's certainly a ring of truth to that. Oh, the corruption of the Jedi right here. Oof, yeah. Nice way of just really talking about it. That doesn't mean we can just go break them and turn them into slaves. I think that might be a slightly different order of difficulty right there. Well, anywho, we have this big old fight. Anakin turns, reveals himself to be able to go help Obi-Wan in a futile attempt to go save him. It doesn't work. Really, just wasn't a great move on Anakin's part to reveal himself there. It just, yeah, not the greatest call. But this is Anakin. You expect him to make a move like that, I suppose. Obi-Wan's the one you expect to be a little more thoughtful. And the Queen is an impressive character. After all of this, after Anakin turns and reveals himself and turns right against her, well, comes up, he starts force choking her, and the Queen is able to get Anakin to essentially submit to her. Because the Queen has both Obi-Wan and Ahsoka at this point, she even gives him his lightsaber because, well, he's going to be her bodyguard now. Now she might be a little overly arrogant and thinking a little too highly of her own opinions of herself here, but it's still impressive, I gotta admit. Well, there was also some interesting comment about Anakin being rather different Jedi, caring more about his friends than his mission. Now that's interesting. That's definitely different right there. And we definitely can't disagree that Anakin's a little different than your typical Jedi. And it certainly has some certain problems to it, shall we say. Yeah. So let's move on to the end of the episode. Obi-Wan gets taken off to another planet where he's going to go to a re-education center with the other people of Ahsoka's species who have been captured. Ahsoka's shoved up into a cage overhanging part of the city and is just left in there. And hey, there's some cool flying lizard creatures. Not the first time we've seen them in the episode, but they're pretty cool. And they go flying on them, Anakin and the Queen. And the Queen, back to being an interesting character. I mean, she recognizes he was once a slave. And she talks about Anakin being able to be more than what he currently is and trying to go ahead and turn him, essentially. Really intriguing. And the ending is the Queen essentially telling Anakin, fully submit to her and she will free Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. And if, hey, they're to live as slaves, guess what? It's you that will keep them that way. Now that's a good cliffhanger. It's a nice dilemma. A real dilemma you can buy Anakin having. Now, let's be honest, I don't think anyone who knows Anakin is going to think that he's really, truly going to submit here. You'd have to do a hell of a lot more than that to go break him. Because he will try, even if he ends up failing in the course of it. I will say Ahsoka didn't have a whole lot to do in this episode. Wasn't the only one. It was just one of those. So on to the end of this arc, and definitely the second part of the one we just watched. This is Escape from Kadavo. Now, Kadavo, just for what it's worth, is the re-education center planet, so that's the name for that one. But first we've got to escape from the planet we're on right now. So we've got to go ahead and escape from Zygerria before we can escape from Kadavo. Okay, so we see Obi-Wan first, because we're actually going to go get to look at him a little bit and see them trying to break Obi-Wan. Essentially by going ahead and beating up or killing the other people who are there and captured every time Obi-Wan does something, every time that he does anything that is against their wishes, so that they just can try to break him and turn him into a slave. Now, this really is the Queen's plan because she wants an army of slave Jedi as well. Because if she can break the Jedi, she can break anyone. And hey, you got an army of Jedi on your side. Well, that's certainly something to help rebuild the Zygerrian slave empire. Well, that said, our Sith, not quite so happy. I mean, they kind of want to control this. They don't want the Queen controlling her own fate. I mean, who the hell wants that? They'll take the Queen if she's a slave to them. And we get a little discussion between Sidious and Dooku, where it's essentially the point of, yeah, if she doesn't go ahead and bow to us, well, kill her. Anakin gets a kick out of that. Hey, so even you have a master. To which, oh, you better bet the Queen. Ooh, bristled at that one right there. How dare someone call the Queen a slave to anyone else? Even if she kind of is. Well, anywho, Anakin ends up getting away while the Queen is heading off to go meet with Dooku. Surprise, surprise. And breaks out Ahsoka. So off we're going. Ahsoka's headed off to the ship. Anakin's going to head back to the palace. And really the fight we get between Dooku and the Queen, the Sith don't want the Jedi as slaves. They want them dead, exterminated, gone, wiped from the face of the galaxy. So we got a little bit of a problem. And, well, that leads to the Queen getting deposed from power, as her first in command, her prime minister, is more than happy to take her place, shall we say. Now, in the course of all that, we get this short little fight between Dooku and Anakin, including with this intriguing whip that Anakin's using. It's a slave whip thing, so it's a different kind of fight since he didn't have his lightsaber on him at the time. And, well, they get out of there. And on the ship, the Queen's final lines are intriguing. She makes a comment about how there's no escape for anyone. And that, guess what? Anakin was right. She's a slave just as he is. All slaves to different masters right there. So is there anyone that's not? Is Palpatine not a slave? Maybe Palpatine's not a slave. Oh, it gets messy if we want to look at things in those terms right there. Okay, so it's time to head over back to that re-education center. So in that re-education center, again, they've been working Obi-Wan. Ooh, they have been raking him over the coals with trying to hurt everybody else to go make him fall in line. And, well, it's time to rescue him. So we've got this cool time. They show on up. Anakin and Ahsoka are going to break on in there. And hey, guess who else shows up? We've got Plo Koon, the Wolf Pack, and a Jedi Cruiser popping on in. Nice. So we get some cool fights in here at this point. Now, Anakin's lightsaber attacks, the way I saw them, they really seem very swift and decisive as he's killing the slavers. There's no hesitation how he's doing it. And that felt different to me. Maybe it was just me and in my head, but it felt like it was different in how he was going after the slavers, which would make sense to me too. And maybe I was just interpreting it because of that, but it certainly felt that way. Oh, and good old Keeper Argos, the guy who was in charge of that base. Well, oh, Obi-Wan can't go kill me. I'm an unarmed man. Well, Rex gets to come in and kill him. That was pretty easy. Yeah, like Rex cares. I don't think he gives a shit that you're unarmed in this case. Now, one thing that surprised me, there seemed to be very few slaves in there that they ended up saving. Because there was this really cool saving scene because the slaves were going to get dumped down into their death as the retracting floor was pulled back. And there didn't seem to be that many. They saved pretty much all of them that were in there at that point in time by bringing the cruiser in underneath the actual floating re-education center. Now, I thought the colony had a lot more, like 50,000 or so? Huh. So it makes me wonder how many were rescued. I'm not sure if it was just one of those ever-popular cases it's hard to show that kind of number, or if there really just weren't that many of them left by the end of all this. Eesh. Well, anyway, the battle was certainly fun. Everybody got to seem to have something to do in there, whether it be Rex or Ahsoka or Anakin or Obi-Wan. So, oh, and we got to see some jetpack clones. That was fun. That was cool. Yeah, definitely cool. Now, that said, let me comment. This episode was a bit weaker, I felt. I felt like it traded in more of the philosophy for action. It certainly had some too, though. But certainly compared to the one right before, it felt like we definitely went more action-heavy for the finale and didn't get as much philosophy and debate as we might have had otherwise in it. But still, don't get me wrong, loved it. It was fun. I mean, the biggest surprise to me, too, was that these are some of Ahsoka's people. Now, Ahsoka probably became a Jedi quite young, and in fairness, I don't know that she came from the colony. I imagine she came from the main planet. But for an episode about her people, you'd think she would be far more front and center in this. And so she felt really underutilized in this trilogy. Well, anywho, again, still enjoyed it. And yeah, maybe enjoyed it a little too much for an episode that was discussing slavery all throughout. But yeah, I guess we could talk about that. But instead, we've still got another episode to talk about, and we need to move on to that. So let's move right along. And this one is A Friend in Need. Now we have this interesting setup. At the beginning, we're having the first ever sanctioned meeting between the Separatists and Republic to go ahead and try to find some kind of truce, maybe a peace, etc. And they're holding it over on Malastare, which, hey, this is intriguing. We've got 3 people on each side. The Republic is Bail Organa, Padme, and Mon Mothma. Your typical leaders when we're talking about peace and such of that matter. Almost surprising in that sense that we didn't have anybody from a different side within the beliefs of the Republic. Now the Separatists, here's something interesting. The Separatists were all non-humans. They were aliens. And they were all non-white. We had blue, green, gray. And I thought that was intriguing. There certainly are humans in the Republic, but there are certainly a number of non-human senators at this point. And this episode really doesn't go into this at all, other than showing it. And by making the choice, it seemed intriguing. Because the Empire that later comes is incredibly xenophobic and very pro-human. And this almost feels like there's an allusion to it just by that fact. And we've noticed this throughout the Clone Wars that the people who are on the side of the Separatists, there tend to be a lot more aliens, or at least it feels like there are a lot more non-humans. I suppose aliens is a weird phrase considering how the galaxies were into, but you get my point. So it's interesting right there. Anyway, we don't go further with that because that's not the point of this episode. Which, to be honest, I would actually kind of love to see more into that politics and whatnot. Another time, I suppose. Because what's here is Ahsoka went ahead and came with, and then Lux Bonteri shows up. Remember, Lux Bonteri's mother was killed by Dooku back in the last season. Off screen, not during an episode we saw, after an episode I really loved where we met Lux and his mother. Well, anyway, Lux goes ahead and accuses Dooku of killing his mother in cold blood, gets taken away by a bunch of droids, and Ahsoka then essentially breaks him out, which actually is not what Lux wants because Lux actually wanted to be taken. He had his own plan going on. So when Ahsoka goes ahead and takes Lux to go ahead and bring him to Coruscant to try to give him some kind of asylum because she actually does care about Lux, well, yeah, Lux actually surprises her and takes her out because we're heading somewhere else. And sadly, Ahsoka got in the middle of this, which was not part of his plan at all. And so they're off to go meet Death Watch, who Lux is going to go work with to try to get his revenge on Dooku, because that's all he cares about at this point. Now, over at the Death Watch camp, we've talked about anti-droid bias a little before here in the series. We certainly have some anti-droid bias here. The Mandalorians there, they're making the droids dance. A good old Western thing where you're shooting at their feet to go and make them jump and move around in a dancing fashion. Yeah, lovely stuff. Now, it's interesting, Ahsoka has this super black and white view of the Death Watch. They're simply terrorists and murderers. Now, in fairness, this episode's really not going to go ahead and try to paint things as more a shade of gray. That's not the point of this one. It would have been interesting to challenge Ahsoka a little more there, just like we did once before. Now, our good old leader of Death Watch, Vizsla, is not happy with Dooku. He's got a scar left over from Dooku, so yeah, he's interested in potentially working with Lux to go take down Dooku. Potentially. Now, that said, that's not where we're going to go here, because Lux really does care about anything as revenge, and that's really what this story is about. This is about Lux being able to break free of being blinded by revenge and being able to see that just because you're the enemy of my enemy does not mean you really should be my friend. And that's what we're really about here. So we meet this nearby tribe because there's a few people that have been taken in by Death Watch. Tryla and some other women, and Ahsoka ends up being with them. And, well, they are essentially being forced to be servants to the rest of the Mandalorians. It's pretty ugly. So the chief of those people comes over and demands that the women be returned, and that the Mandalorians are no longer welcome and they must go ahead and leave the planet. Well, if this really was Shades of Grey, maybe we could be doing something interesting here, but yeah, no. Again, not the point of the episode. So they return them. And then Vizsla and the rest of Death Watch, they head on over to that tribe. And Vizsla kills Tryla with the dark saber and then orders the entire village destroyed, burning it and killing people left and right. Now Ahsoka starts fighting them. She doesn't actually have her lightsaber at this point and loses fighting those Mandalorians that way. Now we don't see what happens to the village in the end, but considering that they were busy destroying it, we can assume they finished massacring everyone in that village. Yeah, that's a bit of an atrocity right there, and it finishes happening off screen. We don't really talk anymore about it either, to be honest. But this is the thing that finally finishes convincing Lux that, yeah, just being the enemy of my enemy is not good enough. Phew, yeah. Well, interesting thing here, R2 actually got something to do in this episode because R2 went ahead and arranged the rest of the droids who had to keep getting rebuilt after the Mandalorians abused them and, well, essentially used them for target practice, right? So R2 reassembles them and they end up fighting the Mandalorians, losing, by the way, but giving our heroes a bit of much needed valuable time. And by the way, the fight between Ahsoka and Vizsla, oof, loved that fight. That was really fun. And that's the end of Vizsla, really, for the episode, because we end up taking him out once his jetpack gets taken out by Ahsoka. No, not dead. He's still alive. He's just elsewhere. So we're racing away on our speeder, and then we got 3 jetpack Mandalorians who are against them. And intriguingly, the one and only female Mandalorian amongst Death Watch we saw is in there, and we get to see her in amongst the fight, too. The way we introduced her and used her in this episode, I feel like we're going to get to see her again and get to know her better. It just has that feel to me. Not sure if that's really going to happen or not, but I'm curious to see it if it does. Well, anyway, they escape, they get up off the planet, and so yay, maybe you and I, Lux and Ahsoka, we can go ahead and head on over to Coruscant and we can do the thing we were talking about at the beginning. Well, I gotta tell you, Ahsoka, I don't think that's going to work any better than the first time. So Lux dashes away in an escape pod. But they do get one last conversation, and it's really talking about them making a good team, and hey, we'll meet again, I promise, says Lux. In case we needed to make it clear that, hey, we're seeing Lux again sometime in the future here. I mean, even without that line being explicitly said, I would have kind of figured we were probably going there. So this was a pretty decent episode. I don't know how long we'll have to wait for that sequel to it. Maybe next season? We'll see. Now, the opening bit with negotiations, God, I kind of wish we could have seen more of that. Really was just an excuse to set up the episode. But yeah, it was still nice to see a little bit. And hey, there were some really good fights. I loved the Ahsoka and Vizsla fight, and the jetpack Mandalorian fight. That was also really fun too. And this one kind of expands our galaxy a little bit, looking at a piece of it that we're not necessarily looking at as much. And that was nice. And they lost. I mean, they certainly failed to protect that village or to defeat Death Watch in the course of this. It was certainly not a win. And that was nice. So it was another good episode. This was a good set of episodes, even if Umbara overshadows everything else. Kind of people of the shadows overshadowing people, right? Okay. Moving right along. And now it's on to the next arc. We have the episode Deception. So we're going all out on Obi-Wan and deception mode. Well, we'll talk more about that in a second, I suppose. So the news blurb here gives us some background info. We find out that Moralo of all has been caught, but he was masterminding some kind of plot to kidnap Chancellor Palpatine. The evilness. Oh, who could have been behind that plot? Maybe Chancellor Palpatine? Yeah, that seems quite likely. But anywho, they went ahead and captured him, but there's still rumors that it's going ahead anyway, and now the Jedi Council is wanting to go ahead and get involved. So we tune in over to Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka, and, well, they're just walking around over in a not-so-savory part of town, heading back to go off to the Jedi Council and deal with some kind of boring council meeting, as Anakin would say. Well, and then a sniper pops up, and he targets the 3 Jedi and misses. Not the brightest sniper? I mean, that definitely feels like a setup right off the bat. I mean, you're a sniper targeting 3 Jedi, and you miss all of them with your first shot? Yeah, and it's not because they sensed it and got out of the way. No, you just missed. Yeah, right off the bat, that feels off. Well, anywho, so they separate off and go chase down the would-be assassin. Well, in the end, Obi-Wan steps out from behind a barrel and waits to go ahead and get shot. And so he does. And he falls off the building to his supposed death. Now, I think that would have been more effective if we were allowed to react to it like Anakin and Ahsoka, so we didn't watch Obi-Wan step out and wait to get shot. That would have made it work better, because, I mean, we would still know he's not dead, of course, but then we'd really see it through their eyes and their emotion better. But, hey, still good anyway. Their reactions, very nice. So then we head over and get to see a Jedi funeral, which actually was quite interested in there, going down into like the crypt and all kinds of interesting stuff. We had people gathered in there, got to see all kinds of people at that funeral. Satine was there, for instance, and all kinds of other Jedi. Very cool. We also had a little Vader music in the background. You can see Ahsoka understandably worried about Anakin. And then we give the reveal that, guess what, Obi-Wan's alive. What? Oh, yeah, of course he was. Love Yoda's comment. Yoda just kind of ribbing Obi-Wan over your body, a better performance than you gave. Fallen worse you have. It's like, come on, Obi-Wan, you could have done better. Well, anyway, so then we've got to go ahead and get him disguised. And he's going to get disguised as Racco Hartine, the very bounty hunter, would-be assassin who tried to shoot Obi-Wan. Or did shoot him, I guess. But certainly didn't kill him. Anyway, he shaves himself, he gets his tattoo, gets some facial changing going on, and then, hey, we've got this cool little voice box thing that's a droid spider that goes into his throat. Funky. Yeah. Now, I thought we were going to go down, let's say, a darker path than we ended up going down, because Anakin didn't know, and we had these intercuttings with the assassin at the bar as we moved our way to them ending up meeting. And so I thought that's where we were going to go with that. But no, that wasn't the case, because Obi-Wan first went ahead and took the place of that assassin before Anakin got there. And then Anakin actually showed some impressive restraint. I figured for sure that assassin's dead. I mean, Obi-Wan or not. This is Anakin here at this point. But no, he respected what Obi-Wan would have wanted and didn't kill him. So, impressive. And I can buy it. So then we get over into the prison because Obi-Wan is arrested and taken over there. And that was the whole goal, was to get in there. Because Moralo of All is also in that prison. So Obi-Wan gets to go play the tough guy role with the shark. And, well, that was fun, to be sure. And, hey, playing the tough guy with the shark immediately got him the attention he was looking for. And guess what? Then he gets put into the same prison cell as Moralo of All. And, oh, look, there's Cad Bane, too. Oh, well, that's, of course, all because Moralo of All had the ability to make sure that he got in the right cell. Because he has that kind of influence and power within the prison. Yo. And hey, that's not all the people we get to see. We get to see Boba Fett here later, too, and Bosk is in there, and, well, the two of them go ahead and we create this whole fight because apparently Cad Bane went ahead and paid off Boba to start up a fight that would be a big old distraction for everyone. So you get a big prison riot, and then the escape starts up, and heck, we find out that Cad Bane has apparently broken out from this prison more than once already, and apparently via the same route, via the morgue. Think they'd work to cover that up. But apparently, no. Pay off the right people, it's all good. Obi-Wan gets his way into the group, helps them out at a key spot, and they need to rewire the port. This is where he helps them out especially. And apparently he just twists his hand and hey, the Force went ahead and pulled off the unlocking procedure. Really makes me want to do a Han and go, that's not how the Force works. Fun anyway, though. It was interesting once they were down below and you had Obi-Wan not willing to kill any of them, even to maintain his cover. The cover that was so important. I gotta tell you, not the greatest undercover agent right there. Those Jedi are not willing to go ahead and bend their rules, right? Yep. Well, anyway, that was the end of part 1, so they end up escaping. And hey, the pacing was superb on this episode. It was one of the best paced episodes of the show. It just zipped right along. So I would compare it over toward things like the Ventress arc, where the pacing was just rapid fire and pulls you right on through. This was similar in that sense. Very nicely done. Now, I would have liked to have seen Anakin go a little bit further when he met Obi-Wan's killer. Obviously not to the point of actually killing him, but just a little bit further I think I would have liked during that. But that's okay. I mean, it was still well done. Now, this was definitely a part 1. It very clearly felt like this is set up for where we're going from here. And I definitely enjoyed it. So looking forward to the rest is what my opinion was when I saw that episode. And speaking of, let's move on to the second episode of the arc. This one is Friends and Enemies. It's funny, I remember one of my thoughts too was, I really keep expecting his voice to have some kind of problem at some point, given the whole little bot droid thing over in his throat. It just seemed like a setup for there to be a problem. Okay, so they're doing their escape, and, well, Obi-Wan ditches their ship on another planet in a swamp. That way they won't be tracked. And what planet are we on? Well, we are over on Nal Hutta. Good old planet of the Hutts. We head over to Pablo's pawn shop. Cool roadie in there where they all get their new stuff. And, Cad Bane finds a new hat. Can't be Cad Bane without a cool hat, right? Blend in my ass. Hey, when you're stylish, you don't care about blending in. Well, things don't quite work so great for poor Obi-Wan. Cad Bane betrays him because apparently there's an old beef between Cad Bane and the guy Obi-Wan's impersonating in the first place. On top of that, but he just doesn't like Obi-Wan, so yeah, there's that too. At least how Obi-Wan's portraying this character. So, yeah, and then Obi-Wan gets captured by the Hutts, but hey, he's able to essentially trade info and get out because he had a tracking device on Bane and Aval's ship, and that works. Well, there was an interesting little moment with Aval talking to Dooku, and you just saw Bane shaking his head. Yeah, working with Dooku. And Cad Bane's had his times over there already. Not a big fan. Now here we start to get something interesting popping up. So Obi-Wan contacts Mace and Yoda. And then after that, Mace goes ahead and contacts Palpatine to fill Palpy in. And here's what's interesting, because Anakin is there with Palpatine. And they have this great little conversation afterwards. And really, this is one of the highlights of the episode, in my opinion, is this Anakin Palpatine conversation. Really just getting to see into those machinations and the manipulation of Palpatine. I mean, you get Palpatine with lines like, "It's possible they do not trust you to control your feelings. But hey, guess what? I have it from a reliable source as to where those fugitives are heading. And you cannot deny your feelings. They are what make you special. If you believe you can stop this plot against me, I trust you." Palpy. Insidious. Both seeding all those doubts and conflict with the rest of the Jedi and the Council, and at the same time, trying to ingratiate Anakin more toward him, because I trust you. So even if everything gets foiled, guess what? Palpatine's still making progress over here. Yeah, nasty stuff. Love it. So anyway, off goes Anakin to Nal Hutta. But in the meantime, we have to go ahead and deal with our good old bounty hunters over there. And hey, randomly, what's that size Snoodles in the background? Or just another of the species? Not sure. But I'm going to bet size Snoodles just because. Well, anyway, the bounty hunters with Obi-Wan get off the planet because Obi-Wan has gotten some money from the rest of the Jedi and buys a ship. Well, Anakin gets over there, and he ain't in a happy mood, let's just put it that way. Force choking the bartender to get info quicker? Yeah. With Ahsoka standing right behind him, watching all that. Ooh, yeah. Well, anyway, we all head off to the planet of Arondia, which is fairly deserted. Just a good spot for a refueling station that they happen to be forced to go do. And this is where we get our good old fight at the end of this episode. And hey, this is a really neat little fight. So we've got a battle with the ships flying first. And, well, Anakin jumps off of the one ship over onto the bounty hunter ship. And, well, this isn't going to go well. Good old lightsabers on ships. Makes it so ships don't fly very well. Cad Bane comes out to try to do something. Well, it's still not working. So then the ship crashes. And we get to this on the ground fight. And you can see Anakin was certainly going to murder Obi-Wan. Well, not because he knew he was Obi-Wan, of course. I mean, if he knew he was Obi-Wan, I don't think it would happen. The only reason it doesn't happen necessarily, well, Obi-Wan probably would have done something, but Cad Bane steps in and saves Obi-Wan in this case. And then Obi-Wan gets Anakin into a chokehold and, well, kind of whispers the truth over to him. It's like, hey, yo, bud, it's me, man. It's okay. Yeah. What a mess. So Anakin then passes out. I'm not sure if he really did. I'm assuming it was kind of fake, but yeah. And then you might think, well, Anakin's probably got to be in some trouble now, right? Well, luckily Ahsoka is in there with this great, fierce, defensive rescue of Anakin. Really cool. Well, anyway, that then gives Cad Bane and Obi-Wan time to get out of there and they escape. And then we start looking a little more at Anakin to end this off. And Anakin now very much wanting to get to the bottom of this and see what happened. And gotta say, being betrayed and lied to like that for Anakin. He was betrayed and lied to by the Jedi Council, by Obi-Wan. Ooh, that is gonna hurt his trust in them a good bit. And meanwhile, the Chancellor gets to play himself up as the trustworthy one. I mean, yikes. Dang Jedi. Talk about playing right into Palpy's hand. Loved the episode, though. The pacing was still quite good, and there were some interesting places to take Anakin here, potentially. Some good fight sequences at the end as well, but this one's on top of the ship right there, that was really fun. And that end piece about how we had to work that, considering what we had to achieve in that fight, was a tricky one to pull off, and they did. It's like, nice. Very nicely done. Now, we're going to stop here, just because we're going to break this up into the right way. And I know we're stopping in the middle of the arc, but there's just no better spot to break up these last 12 episodes into 2 videos. So here we go. Now, as usual, there's some good stuff in the next set of episodes. And we will definitely get there next week, because I'm going to talk about the ending to this arc, and we're talking about the ending to Season 4 as a whole. And hey, guess what? It's that time. So let me ask, what about you? What did you think about our Zygerrian Slavers arc? Or maybe you have some thoughts on Lux or Cad Bane. Let me know down below in the comments. And thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like and share it with someone else who will too. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you back here tomorrow for another new episode of Freeform Disney. Have a magical day, and may the Force be with you. Always.